first, I'm Mark Eichman along with Michelle Polston and Shirley Min. The window to sign up for Obamacare is coming up, but are we any better at navigating through the maze of health options now?
Political candidates have more options than ever to reach their audience. We're going to discuss the Facebook effect on political campaigns.
At one time, the DuPont name was everything in Delaware. A report this week on their impact on the arts and cultural institutions of the first state. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
The window to sign up or change your health insurance under the Affordable Care Act is right around the corner. We'll talk about the impact on Delaware in a few moments. First Look reports on some of the cautionary tales that still go into picking a plan. For that, we bring in Alana Gordon of the WHYY Health and Science Desk and The Pulse. Hi, Alana.
Hi, Mark. So to say that health insurance is confusing is an understatement, and researchers like Charlene Wong are finding that many of us are getting stumped when it comes to figuring out which plan is best, even for her.
This is what I study, and I chose the wrong health insurance plan.
Wong didn't realize that her doctor wasn't covered under the plan she went with last year through work, so she had to switch doctors or pay for it completely out of pocket. She says that is one of many factors to take into account when comparing insurance plans. At Penn, she's been researching how well websites like healthcare.gov outline these differences.
I don't think it's intuitive for almost anyone.
Plans are basically organized by premiums. That's the fixed amount a person would pay per month. But a plan's deductible, out-of-pocket maximum, coinsurance, and copay may also affect a person's overall healthcare costs.
And so those are really important concepts to understand, because if you don't, then you might be at risk of being asked to pay a lot down the road when you didn't expect to do so.
She's looked at how even educated college students struggle to understand these things. To help explain them, she gives a theoretical example of a guy, let's call him John, who one day while working on his roof, he falls, and he needs to go to the hospital. The ambulance ride costs $600, but John's insurance plan has a $500 deductible. So
deductible is the amount of money that the consumer or family has to pay before the insurance company will start covering the cost of their health care.
It's the first time John's using his insurance, so it means he'll owe his full deductible of $500 for that ambulance. John's insurance then kicks in for that remaining $100 of the ambulance cost. But John, he's still on the hook for part of that care. Plans also have a coinsurance. Let's say it's 10% for him.
That means that after you've actually reached your deductible of $500, there's still $100 left of that balance, and he would be expected to pay for 10% of that remaining $100.
So after John pays his full deductible of $500, he owes another $10. And after that, he'll have to pay 10% of his remaining care until he hits a certain out-of-pocket cap. Deductible and coinsurance can all vary depending on a plan. Last year, Delaware residents had 24 plans to choose from on the individual marketplace. Even more will be offered this year with varying coverage options. Wong and others say going through them can be a confusing, daunting task, but they don't have to do it alone.
People are also asking others for help. Maybe that's a family member, or a lot are coming to places like Westside Family Healthcare, which actually has certified individuals to walk people through the selection process.
The most common question that I get is, how much does the plan cost? How much is it going to cost me per month?
Sandra Montavan is an enrollment specialist. Hundreds of people have sought help here. She says many are quick to pick the plan that has the lowest premium, which often comes with a high deductible. That could work if a person doesn't need a lot of care. She recalls one individual, though, who learned what the deductible means the hard way.
At that time, they were worried about, I need insurance, let me get covered, I'm going to go my cheapest route. But then when they started using the plan, they come to me and they say, this doesn't cover this, or I got to pay this.
For Jim and Tiffany Wallace, the best plan for them has changed, as has their situation. At first, Jim had insurance on his own through the marketplace.
When I just had the plan myself, I had a huge deductible and I wasn't planning on going to the doctors very often, and getting in a big accident would be the only thing I'd have to pay for.
Enter Tiffany. They got coverage together. He's a soccer coach, she's a horseback rider. They wanted to make sure they could see an affordable chiropractor.
So specialists was something that we looked into. Do they cover specialist visits? How many do they cover?
And then last winter, they adopted a baby girl. Montavan helped them review their options. She showed them that they qualified for financial discounts, which they didn't realize. And she helped them sort out some unanticipated problems when signing up their daughter. In the end, they settled on a plan that's $700 a month and has a combined $1,500 deductible for all three of them.
I'm pretty comfortable with this plan. I mean, I think the monthly amount is something that we can cover fairly easy. You know, the deductible is not that high that it would break the bank, you know, if we met it.
And I'm happy we can continue to see all the same doctors that we know and have a history with.
And if the Wallaces decide it's not the best fit, then they can change it during open enrollment, and that takes place from November through January.
So Lana, what do we know about the plans for this coming year?
So the actual details of the plans will be available November 1st through healthcare.gov or choosehealthde.com. Those are the official websites for signing up. But we do know that there's going to be almost 30 plans available from 3 insurance companies, and the premium rates, they are going up. So for Highmark, it's going to be about a 22% increase, and Aetna about 16%.
So really some significant increases in costs for folks. Do we know why those rates are going up?
There's lots of different takes on why. Insurers have argued that lots of people are signing up for insurance who haven't been to the doctor in a while, and so that increases healthcare costs.
So what if you went through this last year, you're already in the marketplace? Do you have to go through this again, or what should people do?
So if somebody doesn't do anything, typically they're auto re-enrolled in their plan. But again, details, rates are changing, so lots of agencies are encouraging people to review that, and they can do that during open enrollment.
Probably not a bad idea. Thanks, Alana. You can follow our reporting on healthcare, the Healthcare Act and open enrollment period on newsworks.org/Delaware. You can follow Alana Gordon on The Pulse Fridays at 9 a.m. and Sunday morning at 10 on WHYY FM 90.9.
Wilmington police are investigating the controversial shooting of Jeremy McDowell. He's the wheelchair-bound man who allegedly shot himself before police arrived, but was later shot by police. Wilmington Police Chief Bobby Cummings sat down with me to talk about the pressures law enforcement often faces. Thanks for making time for us, and welcome to our first person segment. First and foremost, how's the job going overall since you've taken the position as police chief? It's been a little over a year, right?
Yes, yes. Again, from my perspective, I believe the job is going well. There are a lot of challenges that I've been facing over the last year in terms of building relationships in the community, bringing new training and opportunity to our officers in terms of initiatives that we're doing, looking to move forward. We're trying to be transparent.
So much so that you're starting a Citizens Police Academy again this year?
We are. We are starting a Citizens Police Academy. That's one of the things that we try to do on a continuing basis because we want the community to understand how policing works, how we do policing within the city environment. If they understand some of our policies, they understand some of the nuances that go into policing, I think that gives them a better understanding. So we try to open our doors to give them access to, again, our policies. They get to see some of the inner workings of the police department. They have questions, obviously, that they want to know why we do certain things, and we try to give them an opportunity to get a lot of that answered. Because we think if they see things from our perspective, it gives them, again, a little greater insight into why things occur. Not that they have to agree, but it just gives them an understanding of why we do things the way we do.
Okay. Well, the past few weeks have seemed to spark up some negative energy from community members, including rock throwing at police officers. Is that the type of behavior expected from the community?
Obviously, we don't want people throwing bottles and rocks at us. But we do understand that there are some frustrations that are going on right now, as you stated, with the current environment that's happening within our city and around the country. So that's one of the reasons why we try to get out and make sure we develop those relationships throughout the city. And we know there's always going to be a segment that really does not agree with everything that we do, and understandable, because there's things that keep people, or some people, from moving forward, and they believe that the police are part of that. But really our true goal is to help people, get them to understand policing, and I think some of that just comes around the educational part, educational piece of it, is why we try to do the Citizens Police Academies.
Okay. Well, let's talk crime strategy. Congratulations, first and foremost, for the recent takedown of a gang. I understand there are a number of initiatives underway under the Williams administration.
Yes.
People want to know, basically, is Wilmington a safe city?
I will tell you that Wilmington is a safe place. Do we have occurrences of crime that occur in our city? Absolutely. One of the things I will say is that when you talked about that last takedown of those individuals involved in that gang, we don't really take pleasure in that because it's the youth. But we know that's something that we have to contend with and deal with. We'd rather have them in a position where they're being educated and they feel comfortable and safe around the city, and not go to the lengths that they do to solve disagreements. But overall, again, I will say that we do have a safe city, and we're dealing with those individuals that are impacting crime within our city, and we continue and will do that.
They're just isolated incidents, would you say that, or?
I will say that they're isolated to specific environments and conditions that happen among a few individuals that engage in crime, yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much. If you want to see this interview again or know more about the Citizens Police Academy, coming up this month, please visit WHYY.org/first. In fact, all of our shows are there. Check it out.
Coming up on First, this artist does more than work with clay. The man behind clay monotypes in our first experience. And how big will Facebook and other social media sources be in the 2016 election? We'll discuss that later on First.
Another big Delaware story this week is the retirement of DuPont Company CEO Ellen Coleman. We've given Rob Torno the task of explaining that story through his first cartoon. So Rob, the big question, not so much focused on Coleman's retirement, but what happens next to DuPont?
Right, I mean, because her whole strategy there had been to fend off these investors from wanting to break up the company. Right. I mean, she had to make concessions about cost and getting rid of certain properties, but she really fought back on that. And Breen, who is taking over as interim CEO, was on her side at that point. But he has a history of breaking stuff up, so it kind of remains to be seen what's going to happen.
And it's really a sort of kind of the next step after fighting off that proxy fight from Peltz, that this was kind of inevitable almost?
Yeah, I mean, she was able to fight it off with the support of the company, but the financials have also continued to look bad, and he's still there in the wings sort of pressuring the company. Right. So they had to make a move, and, we'll see if it's her decision. This stuff will come out eventually.
Sure. And moving to sports for a second, the Eagles' offense has been offensive so far this year. It's really been rough.
Yeah, talking about another breakup, right? So, yeah, Chip Kelly remodeled the offense in his image and put it out there, and everyone thought it was going to be great. Now, like my cartoon shows, it's sort of this jalopy that's kind of flopping around. They have a must-win game on Sunday. We'll see if they can turn it around.
Unfortunately, they're all must-wins now. All right, whether it's sports talk or Delaware news, you can follow Rob on Twitter @RobTorno. Thanks, Rob.
No sweat.
Ironically, this next story takes us back to a time when the impact of the DuPont family in Delaware was everywhere. We know that reach still stretches in the arts and culture fabric of the state, which includes museums. As our content partner story this month with Delaware Today magazine, we head to the Mineralogical Museum at the University of Delaware. But the backstory of the Irénée DuPont collection is about more than pretty and interesting gems. Located behind the double doors at Penny Hall, on the campus of the University of Delaware, sits a collection of gems that serves as the bedrock of the university's Mineralogical Museum.
The foundation of this museum was from Irénée DuPont, and he was a mineral collector, and he left his collection to the University of Delaware in his will.
The university received the gift in 1964.
And Irénée was a very sophisticated collector. He was an engineer. He was very scientifically minded, too. And so he looked for different things. He liked really well-formed crystals, and he liked rare things. So he, And he collected essentially for about a 10-year.
However, the appreciation for the donated specimens and their origins didn't come until years later.
It's an unfortunate thing, really, when a collection is separated from the collector, because we didn't know much about it. There were hardly any labels, which makes it a kind of a difficult situation, and not much was known about it. What was known was that we knew that Irenaeus' papers were at Hagley Museum, and in his papers was found a bill of sale from Tiffany's. So it was, I think, December 20th, 1919. He bought a collection from George Kunz, who was the vice president of Tiffany's in New York. He bought an entire mineral collection for $27,000.
It was originally believed the entire collection was purchased at one time, but further research by Dr. Sharon Fitzgerald, the museum's curator, proved otherwise.
As I went on and did research about the foundation of this museum, the Irenaeus DuPont collection, it turns out that he didn't buy everything from Tiffany's, and that he bought a lot of things from a man whose name was George English, who was a dealer and collector.
About 25% of the museum's collection is from Irenaeus DuPont. The rest was acquired from around the world.
We have a mineral, for instance, a calcite from Elmwood, Tennessee. And the Elmwood mine is a lead zinc mine. It's not open anymore, but and there's still a lot of zinc left there, but the price of zinc dropped so low that it's not worth their mining.
Other interesting gems on display include a yellow diamond found in an Arkansas cave. Mark Nardone is the executive editor of Delaware Today magazine. Mark, great to see you.
Good to see you, Shirley.
I know we're both a little tired from our little ones, but you know, our story, we focused on the Mineralogical Museum, but Delaware really has a lot to offer arts and culture-wise.
I think it's extraordinary that a city the size of Wilmington and a county the size of Newcastle has so much to offer, and that's largely a legacy of the DuPonts.
So much from one family. I mean, did you find that unusual, and is that why the magazine decided to pursue something like this?
I don't think it's unusual. You know, I mean, we grow up with this sort of constant fascination with the DuPonts. What is surprising is you don't always know the people behind the institutions, and to get to know them a little more personally was interesting to me.
And they each member of the DuPont family, whether it was, you know, the founders or the grandsons or great-grandsons, they all had these particular hobbies and interests that really amassed a collection. I mean, I find it to be strange that there's so many family members. Like, was there something in the water, you think?
I think it's nice to be able to afford those kinds of hobbies.
Yeah, so have you been to the Mineralogical Museum?
No, I never have. You know, my 4-year-old is a big fan of the Natural History Museum. He loves dinosaurs like all 4-year-olds, and the deep sea. And Winter, of course, you know, it's just a world-class place.
So you'd think a lot of times you have the DuPont company, you know that there are these business folks, but you know, do you feel like the DuPont show that even though you're in business, you can be pretty well-rounded and have sort of an artsy side?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you have to have that. If you're a hard-driving, working hard person, you need an outlet.
Yeah. Well, we thank them for their outlets because it's definitely benefited our state. Okay, Mark Nardone, thank you so much for being here. And our content partners website, DelawareToday.com. Go there, check it out, and you can see the October issue online, which is also on newsstands now. Thank you so much, Mark.
More and more of us are getting our news these days via social media, but what impact does that have on political news and maybe even more importantly, political views? This week's first person is University of Delaware professor Paul Brewer. He studied that question and joins us to talk about his findings. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So what is the impact of social media on political candidates, political views, and users' opinions of those people?
Well, what we were interested in our study was two things. One is, do comments that ordinary citizens make on candidates' Facebook pages influence voters? So, you know, it's obligatory for candidates these days to use social media, to use Facebook, to use Twitter, to use Instagram. But one of the interesting things about social media is it gives voters a chance to have a say back to candidates. It's interactive.
It really is sort of a very democratic kind of thing.
There's a chance for a conversation. So we were interested in what impact does that conversation have. So what we did was we created a fake candidate, a fake Facebook page for that candidate, fake posts on that fake Facebook page, and then we had fake commenters, just look like ordinary average people, make comments that were either positive or negative on the candidate's Facebook page. And we manipulated it so some voters saw the positive comments, some voters saw the negative comments. We also sometimes had the candidate respond and sometimes the candidate didn't respond. So here's what we found. These comments from random people on the candidate's page actually influenced what other voters thought about the candidate. So if there were positive comments, the people who were viewing the page, and these were Delawareans we asked online, they thought that they liked the candidate more, they thought the candidate had better qualities, and they were more likely to vote for the candidate. When they saw the negative comments, they were less likely to vote for the candidate. They thought more negative things about the candidate. The other part was, does it pay for the candidates to say something back? And we found that what the candidate said didn't make any difference. It was all what these random commenters were saying. Now, from the point of view of the people who are being influenced, they don't know these people. For all they know, these people don't even exist. And in fact, they did not even exist. So that was pretty striking to us.
So it really is that that people give weight to what other average citizens say way more than what a politician would say in response even to I guess that has kind of implications for political advertising and political messaging.
Yes, so what we think is going on is the voters, they discount what the candidate says because the candidate has an interest in trying to influence you. But these other people, there's no reason to think that they're trying to help the candidate or hurt the candidate. Voters just think they're saying what they really think. And you look at all the campaign ads, there are lots of ads where they have ordinary average voters saying, well, this candidate does this great thing. So it's kind of a social media equivalent to that.
So if we took a look at the kind of vast political field that's out there right now, obviously especially on the Republican side, really a ton of candidates. Is there a candidate that seems to have a leg up in the social media sort of spectrum when it comes to these types of comments?
Well, I think not so much on Facebook, but on Twitter. If I think of a candidate using social media right now, I think of Donald Trump.
Sure.
Because he's almost the real first Twitter age candidate. He gets into Twitter wars with people. He uses, and when he tweets something, it gets retweeted a lot. It gets talked about in the news. And so it gets people not only through social media, but through the broader, more traditional media.
And so obviously he hasn't made his decision public yet, but where does Joe Biden kind of fit into all of this? Obviously he would get a lot of support from, you would think, Delaware commenters on social media. Yes, and he was part of the Obama campaign in 2008 and 2012, and if you think of any presidential level campaign that has made effective use of new technology and new media and social media, it's that campaign. So you'd have to think that he'd have some useful experience in using things like Facebook and Twitter as part of a campaign if he does decide to get in, and we may find that out soon. Right. So moving forward in sort of the broad political campaign, do you see social media, Facebook, Twitter, becoming more important maybe for a candidate than, say, television advertising? That we've seen so many political ads that you kind of just turn them off when they come on, but Facebook, maybe because of these comments in your study, becomes much more important in the next cycle and the next cycle? And I don't think we're there yet in terms of it being more important than television ads. I think that's down the road, but certainly it's important. It's something that candidates have to do now. And it's getting harder and harder to reach people through traditional methods like campaign ads. There are so many outlets that people are watching, it's hard to reach them all, and campaigns really have to use all the tools available. And so this is something that's part of their campaign toolbox, and as more and more people, about 70–80% of the public uses Facebook. All right, University of Delaware professor Paul Brewer, he teaches communication and political science. He's also the director of University of Delaware Center for Political Communication in Newark. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for having me.
Artist Mitch Lyons studied ceramics and printmaking in college. After graduation, he found a way to combine the two. He became the first person to print with clay. Now, 50 years later, he's still working in his craft. Mitch and his clay monoprints make up this week's first experience.
My name is Mitch Lyons, and I went to an undergraduate school in Philadelphia as a printmaker. I went to Tyler for my graduate work in ceramics, and in 1968 is where I began thinking about marrying the two, printmaking with clay. Monoprint is you get one print, mono meaning one. Clay monoprint has a component of the clay in it, and no one's ever printed with clay before. This is a technique I invented, and I'm really happy to share it. Basically what I do is I take white clay, like porcelain, stick it in a blender, and then I add colors, and I paint these colored slips, which is liquid clay, on the slab, one layer over another, one color over another. After the design is finished, I take a canvas and wet it, place it over the slab, roll it with my rolling pin, and that pulls a thin layer of clay off. To me, it's a very unsophisticated technique that gives you very, very sophisticated results. For me, making the pottery and making the clay prints are the same. They're the same techniques, it's the same material. Of course, the clay pots are fired and the clay prints are not, but they're basically the same process. My work doesn't look like clay. It does to me. I'm very fond of the clay because it has a surface that is unlike ink or paint or acrylic, whatever. So it has a very soft, intimate quality. I like the freedom. You know, I come out here with a cup of coffee in the morning. I may just sit down for a couple minutes, look outside, you know, just watch the birds. I think it's the freedom, and the freedom leads to the passion. I have an affinity toward the clay, and it's the love of the material that I seem to gravitate toward. I make a living as an artist. I mean, just saying that alone is remarkable. I am so blessed by having that freedom that I could play and be a child and make work that seems to be very well accepted. It's a very childlike technique, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun with it. I always thought that if you're going to do something for the rest of your life, you better have fun with it.
The clay slab Mitch uses was created in 1980. It's been kept wet all that time. He teaches classes and workshops from his studio, the Delaware Art Museum, and has done some in different parts of the world. He's also written a book. Check out MitchLyons.com to learn more.
And next week, we take a peek inside the world of Amazon and its impact on Middletown. Also, Dogfish Head is trying to make a positive impact on the environment by recycling water used in the beer making process.
And we'll have those stories and much more next week. That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Alana Gordon, Shirley Min, and Nichelle Polston, I'm Mark Eichman. Have a great week.